We're going to talk about how to use accordance to do a word study, and we're going to be using the Hebrew text. We'll be using a dictionary, a Hebrew dictionary, and we'll be looking at some passages that the dictionary points out. To begin with, I'm going to get rid of the dictionary and all these helps over on the right-hand side so we can sort of begin from scratch. Now, for a word study, the process involves finding the semantic range of a word. We'll use a dictionary, but we'll also investigate how the word is used in the Hebrew Bible. That's a very important part of the process. We don't want to just trust to what a dictionary tells us, although that's valuable. We also want to look and see how a word is used in various contexts in the Bible to get a better idea for ourselves of how that word is used and the various ways that it's used in its different contexts. In addition, we're going to see how to apply what we've learned about the possible meanings of a word, that is, its semantic range, and we'll use that insight to determine what the word means in a particular passage, in this case in Psalm 1. So let's begin by looking at some setup. I'm going to move the screen over a little bit so we can see when I select under Edit, Preferences, click on that. You may already have these set up correctly. Come up to Amplify, and then under triple click Defaults, choose for Hebrew, the third line down, the Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. So pick the Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. This means that when you triple click on a word, the dictionary that comes up will be the Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. And then we're going to come down to Tool Display, and under Tool Display, come all the way over here to the right-hand side, about the middle, it says Text. I have it currently set to Hebrew Bible. For text, you are going to want to set this to ESV with Strong's. Text will be ESV with Strong's. Alternate text can remain Hebrew Bible. This won't affect us. I'm going to click OK, and then it's going to ask, do I want to apply this new display to all open tools? At this point, it doesn't matter. Just say yes, and that will get you out then of the preferences. I'll move the screen back out a little bit again. Give us a little more space. I have two tabs up now. I have the ESV with Strong's, and I have the Hebrew Bible, Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. And I have it currently set to Psalm 1:1. And we're going to talk about how to do a word study using accordance. At this point, I want to bring up my dictionary, have a separate window for my dictionary. I can do that by coming over to the very top left and clicking New, and then bringing my cursor down to Hebrew Lexicons and Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. That's going to split the window in two. I typically like to resize it a little bit so that the Hebrew is bigger, but that's just a matter of your preference. Now, to get instant details up for a word, I can either set up my instant details pane. So under Windows, Instant Details, that will pull up an Instant Details pane underneath. I can resize that as well if I want to. Then when I hover over a word, it gives me the instant details down on the bottom. If I want to bring my cursor down, I have to hit the Shift key. I'm pressing the Shift key. I can bring my cursor down. I can copy by pressing Copy Instant Details. The other option is to click on the word for about half a second, and it brings up a pop-up window that has the same information. So either way, whatever you prefer. So I am going to get rid of the Instant Details pane because I can simply get the pop-up if I want that information. So let's look at some instant details. I'm going to click on this word here. It's ba'atzat, but the word itself is atzat. It's got a preposition in front of it and then atzat. Note that although this is a compound word, the inseparable preposition bait and the noun atzat When I hover the cursor over the various parts, they're highlighted separately. And I can click for half a second on the first part, the bait, and I get the instant details for it. Click again to get rid of that. Then I move the cursor to the left, and now I'm highlighting the noun atzat. I can click for half a second on that and get the instant details for that. This is useful because then I can separate out each part of the compound word and get instant details for each part of the compound word. So let's look at the instant details. Come down, it's got the word as it appears in the text, atzat, and a transliteration of atzat. And then we have the dictionary form, eitzah, and in parentheses we have the root, which is the verb ya'atz, and then we have in parentheses also a transliteration of the root. And then finally we have eitzah, which is a transliteration of the dictionary form. Then we have some information about the word itself as it appears in the text. It's a noun, it's common, feminine, singular, construct. And then we have here what we call a gloss definition, and it's counsel. Notice that we have to be careful here because this is just a base definition, and it may or may not be the definition of this word in this context. So remember this very important rule. Words have meaning only in context. And so you can be thrown off by this definition here because it gives you a definition, but it may not be the correct definition for your context. So be very careful in using this definition. It gives you a good ballpark, but it may not be the definition, or it might be a different nuance than what you have in your passage. So you need to be aware of the limitations of the definition that's given here. Okay, we can also then use the triple click option here. I can triple click this word, 1, 2, 3, and I'll get the definition over here in the Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. Notice that the first definition given is a verb, not the word that we're looking for, but it's from the same root. And so I need to come down. It's not this next definition. There's another alternate definition of this verb, to lay one's eyes upon. Then we have an interesting one. We have atse, which is the bottom of the spine. Obviously, that's not what we're looking for. And then finally, here we have eitzah, and that matches the word that we saw when we looked for the dictionary form here. Eitzah, and here's our word. So here's eitzah. So that's the definition we're looking for. Notice that it gives us several definitions: counsel, advice, decision, and even here, notice that decision is a different nuance than counsel. You can get counsel from somebody, but then when you make a final decision, that's a different nuance of the word. So that's why I say you want to be careful and not just run with the first definition you get. You need to find out how the word is being used in context. Okay, so we have some other definitions then. Good counsel, that is wisdom. Number 3, the type of counsel that involves a plan or a purpose or a design or even a plot. It can be used of an evil plot even. Finally, the word can be used to refer to counsel. The dictionary is normally pretty accurate, but we want to go and check some of these to see, number 1, how exactly it's being used in the various verses, and to give ourselves a better idea of the word. So you're going to find that going to biblical passages is essential to getting a fuller idea of the meaning of a word. So let's look at some examples here. Under definition 1, we have counsel, advice, decision given by humans. So here we have JG 27, that would be Judges 27. Now I'm just going to click on this, and when I click on it, it brings up the passage over here in a separate window. I actually prefer the window to be below, so I'm going to click on the top of this window and pull it down here, sort of to the bottom of my dictionary window, and it's going to then switch it over so that the dictionary is on top and the verses are on the bottom. And I can resize this a little bit to give more weight to the dictionary. Now I've got the ESV down here of Judges 27, and this is why I went to the preferences at the beginning and set that text display to ESV. Now I'm going to also want to see the Hebrew, so I'm going to add a parallel. Notice the little add parallel button here. I'm going to add a parallel, and I'm going to go to Hebrew Bible, Biblia Hebraica, tagged. If you don't see it here in your recents, under recent modules, you'll need to go down to texts and find it. But I've got it here, so I'm just going to click that. So it's now going to give me a parallel Hebrew and English. And I'm looking now for the word, here it is. So if I hover my cursor over that, it will also tell you what the ESV translation of it is, and notice that it is counsel. So, behold, you people of Israel, all of you, give your advice and counsel here. So that's a pretty good example of that first definition, which is counsel, advice, decision. Another example here is 2 Samuel 15:31. Go ahead and click that, and notice that it comes up down here both in English and in Hebrew. And so I look for the word in this verse, and then David prays, "O Lord, please turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness." And of course, if you hover over counsel, you'll also see that it's atzat, which is what we see actually in Psalm 1, the same word atzat. It's the construct form of eitzah. And so again, we have the idea of advice or counsel. So it looks like in the examples that we can find here that the dictionary has a pretty good handle on the meanings. But notice by going to these verses, we are getting our own sense of how the word is used, and that deepens our understanding of it. So it's always a good idea to go and find examples in the Bible, in context, to enrich one's understanding of a particular meaning of a word in its context. Well, let's move down and talk about the next definition is good counsel. So that'd be wisdom. Let's look at Deuteronomy 32:28. And so here is the idea from Deuteronomy 32:28 that they are a nation void of counsel. Sense is more they're a nation that's void of a body of understanding, not just a counsel for a particular matter, like I need wisdom to know what kind of car to buy, but they are a nation void of counsel, meaning that they are a nation that's void of wisdom for living. And it's the same word here. It's eitzot, which would be counsels, actually. It's actually a plural, interestingly. So literally, they are a nation void of counsels, but the idea is that they are a nation that's void of wisdom for life. So it's not just one particular piece of counsel, but it's all the counsel necessary for leading a wise life. And here we're talking about the counsel of God, obviously. This second definition may be what we're looking at over here in Psalm 1:1 when we're talking about blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked or the counsel of wicked ones. Let's look further and see if we have any other options here. So number 3, we have counsel as in a plan, a purpose, a design, or a plot. Let's look at Jeremiah 18:23. And let's see, we're looking for, here it is, atzatam, which you've got the pronominal suffix for their. So their counsel or their plot, notice that the ESV translates that as plotting. You, O Lord, know all their plotting to kill me. Here's the word eitzah being used for the idea of a plot. Now, does that work in Psalm 1:1? Well, blessed is the man who does not walk in the plot of the wicked. That could be the idea there, the kind of plans or plots that the wicked come up with. You're blessed if you don't walk in those. And you will need to decide whether that's possible here. You might have a case where either one would be valid. It seems to me we're talking more generally of the overall wisdom worldview of the wicked. So blessed is the one who does not walk in the wisdom of the wicked. I think that here definition 2 probably is the closest for Psalm 1, but we still are in the process of figuring out the whole range of meaning for this word. So the last option here is counsel, Council, rather than SEL. And we don't have any examples in the Old Testament. We have a couple from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so the idea is of a council of people, and that doesn't seem to be a meaning that we find in the Old Testament. And so I think we can pass by that one. So our options really are 1, 2, and 3. We get a good idea of the semantic range of the word by looking at these examples, and then we decide based on the context of our passage and the passages that we've looked at what the meaning is in our passage. And I think in our passage, Eitzah appears to be closest to the number 2 meaning here in the Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew. This idea of wisdom as a body of counsel that represents a whole life viewpoint of a particular type of person, in this case, the wicked. So that is how we use the dictionary, and then we do some lookups in the Bible itself to get an idea of the semantic range of a word, and then ultimately to figure out in a particular context what that word means.